So I just turned 36 a little less than a month ago. And as the title of this video suggests, I'm 36 years old and I don't have any friends. And so let me just give you a little bit of backstory just so that it wasn't always like this, okay? And that's the thing that I want you to understand first and foremost. It's not like I'm black pilled on the whole thing of finding friends or anything like that. So the issue was, when I was younger, I did have friends, obviously, um, but I had changed so much for the better, mind you, that those people no longer served a purpose in the direction I was going. So when I do get to college and I do make new friends, I do manage to sustain those friendships for a while, and then eventually, little by little, those friendships start to sort of unravel themselves, and they begin to cease to exist. And it got to a point where I thought, I was used to justifying that, well, you know, this is the reason why. And it was always something related to what they were doing, not what I was doing. That's right. So I could kind of feel comfortable in my decision, of cutting ties with these people. And these were good friends. These were close friends, right? But for one reason or another, they just started, the relationships began to dissolve. And I didn't take it personally. I guess because in my mind at that time, I thought to myself that I would be able to find new friends, and I wasn't worried because I always had. So that wasn't really a concern. The other issue that sort of came to a head and now kind of got me to where I am now was that instead of spending a lot of times around other men, I spent most of my time hanging out with girls. And so what that did for me was, yes, it was a distraction. Yes, it was fun. But the reality was that it was kind of like a way for me not to realize that I didn't have any guy friends, right? So what ends up happening, right? Let's say, hypothetically speaking, I got to the point where I wasn't dating someone or I wasn't hanging out with a girl. I didn't have anybody to hang out with. And then that realization kind of got me thinking like, damn, like, wow, I really am, I don't have any friends. And so when I decided to stay away from women, I kind of like decided that I was going to go the lone wolf route and thought that was what made sense to me at the time. And I think that was just my way of trying to justify the situation. So rather than say, oh, I need to change it, I basically was like, no, I'm going to double down on being a lone wolf, if you will, and decided to go that route. And yes, it's important to enjoy your own company. Yes, it's important to appreciate and embrace solitude. But for that to be the default and to have no other recourse is, I think, detrimental in the long run. We are social beings. So I felt like it did take a toll on me. And, at one point I even had a therapist at one point, and I had told him about it. And I was like, look, buddy, like, I don't have any friends. And I think that's one of my biggest issues, I told him. And he says, well, why don't you go to the gym, right? You'll find friends there. And I was like, I've been to the gym. It's not like I haven't been to a gymnasium. It's not like I didn't have a membership. I've had one before. I couldn't tell you that I had made genuine friendships, right? From those experiences, from going to these places. And that brings me to my next point, is that the lack of third spaces is also a big problem, right? Anybody who's ever traveled to Europe or lives outside of the US can kind of attest to this, right? There is sort of like a public square. There is a place where you rub shoulders with people and you familiarize yourself with certain surroundings, right? There's a certain community feel to it. The US is not so much like that, right? We're a car culture. So I could see someone one day and may never see them again, right? That's just kind of how it is. So I think that's another issue. The other thing was that, going back to my therapist, was like, for example, I would go to the park, like I do calisthenics, so I would go to the park. I would kind of meet some guys, here and there. I would strike up conversations. But what ends up happening, I think my big issue, and maybe some other people would agree, is that the type of people I was running into are not people that I necessarily wanted to be friends with, right? I could talk to them, I could say hello, I could chat with them whilst I was working out, but to take the next step and actually hang out with these people and spend time with them was not really what I was looking for. So part of it is me as well, is that I've gotten to the point where I want friends, but I want friends that are going to be of quality, right? Because it's like, I don't want to hang out with degens. Like solely that's the easy thing, right? If I was just trying to look for any friends, that would be easy. But the issue is trying to find people of quality. Is it's I think it's difficult for me, and I think maybe a lot of people in the same situation can understand what I mean by that. And so all these things all kind of came together and got me to the situation that I am now. And the funny thing is, someone could talk to me, meet me, or whatever, and it's like, yeah, I'm perfect. I'm good with small talk. Like that's not an issue for me. Having these small conversations with strangers, I can do that all day. It's the aspect of cultivating relationships long term and sustaining them that's a challenge for me. And so going back to my therapist, I thought it was funny because I had gotten to the point where disappearing, going ghost on people was kind of normal for me. It was like a pattern that I was used to. I felt comfortable with. I even ghosted him, and I was just like, man, like I'm terrible for that. I spent like a year talking to this dude, and I just didn't even say like a proper goodbye. I just disappeared. But those are for other reasons. But that was the other thing was, so I decided, okay, fine, I'll put myself out there, right? And I am slowly, putting myself out there. Like one thing, there was a coworker that I was like, hey, bro, like I love playing tennis, like, and I told him, I was like, I heard that, for guys to actually hang out, we need to have an activity to orient, our friendship around. So I was like, if you're down to play tennis, he's like, absolutely. So I have begun to set up appointments in that regard. I want more of that though. I need more people that I want to do activities with, and I think that's the lesson here, right? Is that okay? If you're in a position where you're my age, right, 36 or younger or older, and you don't have any friends, start there. Orient a friendship around an activity. Uh, that's the other thing that was difficult for me, right? Is that like, I don't drink, so it's not like I can just go to a bar and hang out with people there. And I'm not really much of a night owl. I don't really go out to like, places like that. So that does make it a little difficult for me. And look, at the end of the day, um, I have to take responsibility for the decisions I made in terms of the friendships that I invested in when I was younger, because I can't really tap back into those, right? Some of them are not conducive to where I am, or they're just people that I don't really want to be around. And so maybe that's a problem that I have to address with myself. But then the other thing is too, is now that I am open and willing to find new friends, the quality just isn't there. The other issue is proximity, right? So and maybe, yeah, sure, I could probably find some people online that I could be friends with, but the reality is like the proximity to people is really what I would think of as like friendships, right? How often I could see these people would make a big difference for me. So that's the other issue for me. So I kind of just wanted to share with you my the honesty of the situation, which is that it's not a great one. It's not one I'm comfortable with. It's something that I'm trying to get out of, and I'm hoping to, right? I hope that the next time I hear from you or you hear from me, this won't be the situation anymore. But if it is, like I said, I've already made the intent to kind of put myself out there, and I hope that as I continue to do more activity outside of work, I can orient myself in terms of like the creative endeavors I'm working on, also like the health, physical stuff that will hopefully get me in a position to find other like-minded individuals that will, hopefully become friends one day. But in the meantime, I have to kind of accept things as they are and do something about them, right? Because the last thing I want to do is sound like this is a pity party. I've seen a couple other videos, similar sentiments, and I don't want to fall into that trap. And so I think this is a message of hope for sure, right? That this is temporary. This is something that you can break out of. I can break out of, right? And this is really what it is, right? For me, is that I'm hoping that this will allow me to free myself, right? From maybe even a little bit of the shame that comes with, well, what am I doing wrong, right? What have I not done? And what can I do better to make sure that in the future I do have these relationships with other men that I think is very beneficial. not just being around women all the time. And I've learned that the hard way. So anyhow, I hope this helps, and I'll see you.